The room was packed. Cameras rolled. Microphones buzzed with tension. And just as the light settled over the committee hall in Austin, the words, "Trump's new Texas redistricting plan," echoed like a siren across the chamber. It wasn't just another political meeting, it was a battlefield disguised as bureaucracy. Jasmine Crockett sat poised at the far end of the long table, her pen tapping rhythmically on her notepad, but her eyes were locked in like a hawk's. She already knew what this was, a bold attempt to rewrite the map of democracy, literally. At the center of the storm, a proposed redistricting map quietly pushed forward by Trump-aligned state legislators. A map that sliced through Black and Latino neighborhoods with surgical precision. Gerrymandering wasn't just back, it was bolder, louder, and designed to erase voices like hers. And then came the man himself. Trump's voice, pre-recorded and piped in via remote statement, thundered through the speakers. "We're restoring balance in Texas. It's fair. It's necessary. And quite frankly, it's what the people want." Jasmine didn't blink, didn't flinch. She leaned forward, clicked her mic on, and said just one thing. "If this map is fair, Mr. Trump, why are you so afraid of our voices?" Gasps scattered through the chamber like broken glass. Even the most stone-faced committee members shifted uncomfortably. Because the truth wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. And Jasmine wasn't there to play nice. This wasn't just about lines on a map. It was about power, who gets it, who loses it, and who fights like hell to keep it from being stolen. And Jasmine had just declared, in front of the whole state, that the theft wasn't happening quietly. The air in the chamber shifted. Jasmine's voice had cut through the room like a blade, and now, everyone was waiting. The Republican chair tried to regain control, clearing his throat and muttering something about decorum, but no one heard him. All eyes were still on Jasmine. Fox News was already rolling their reaction banners. Crockett explodes over fair redistricting. But Jasmine wasn't exploding. She was dissecting. Calmly. Surgically. With facts. She pulled out the map. The proposed congressional lines. Her finger traced the cuts, District 30, her own, carved apart like meat on a butcher's block. The majority Black voting bloc was split in half. "Let me be clear," she said, holding up a census report. "This isn't redistricting. This is voter dilution." A low murmur ran through the audience. "And you know what else?" Jasmine's tone hardened. "You didn't even try to hide it. Because you thought no one would challenge you. You thought we'd be too tired, too broke, too quiet." She turned to the GOP staffers. "You were wrong." One of them, a young man in a navy suit, looked like he wanted to disappear into his seat. Another scribbled a note furiously, but Jasmine didn't stop. She read aloud internal emails obtained through a public records request, messages from Republican aides referring to tightening urban influence, preemptive territory shift, and ensuring ideological integrity. It was all code, and now it was public. And then, she said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "You call it democracy." The camera zoomed in. The chair of the hearing tried again to speak. Jasmine raised a finger. "One more thing." She picked up a stack of postcards, notes from constituents in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. "They're watching. And they're not asking for permission to vote. They're demanding it." Thunderous silence. Not a word. Because in that moment, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just defending Texas. She was warning the entire country. The silence didn't last. A Republican congressman from Houston finally leaned into his mic. "Congresswoman Crockett, you're insinuating malicious intent. These maps follow legal precedent." Jasmine cut him off. "Legal? You mean like the North Carolina map that was struck down in federal court for racial gerrymandering? Or maybe you're talking about Alabama, where the Supreme Court had to force a second majority Black district?" "Spare me." The room stiffened. Her voice stayed calm, but the tension in her jaw said otherwise. "You can dress it up all you want. But redrawing maps to dilute Black and brown voters, especially in Texas, where our population growth is being driven by those communities, isn't policy. It's panic." The congressman tried to fire back, but Jasmine leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make everyone lean forward. You're scared. Not of crime. Not of taxes. Not even of immigration. You're scared of voters who don't look like you choosing leaders who don't serve you. A gasp escaped from somewhere in the gallery. It wasn't dramatic. It was real. Jasmine turned to face the press gallery, her eyes locking with the reporters she knew would try to spin this tomorrow. She gave them a headline. We're not asking for fair play anymore. We're demanding it. And if this body won't deliver it, then we'll take it to the courts, to the streets, to the ballot box, where your maps won't save you. Her words echoed like a drumbeat. The chair of the committee slammed the gavel down. Order. But Jasmine was already gathering her papers. She looked over at the GOP members one last time. You can redraw Texas all you want. But you'll never erase us. The gavel slammed again. This time, it sounded like retreat. The next morning, cable news couldn't get enough of it. Jasmine's words had already gone viral, chopped into bite-sized clips, hashtagged into the bloodstream of the American internet. But what none of the viral edits showed, what only those in the chamber remembered, was the way the GOP had sat frozen, silent, like they'd been caught mid-heist. By 9 a.m., Fox News ran a segment accusing Jasmine of playing the race card. At 9:03, Jasmine was live on MSNBC. Chris Hayes didn't waste time. Congresswoman, Republicans are saying your comments yesterday were divisive. She didn't blink. Good. Division between truth and fiction is overdue. Chris smiled faintly. What do you say to those who claim redistricting is just part of the democratic process? Jasmine leaned forward. Democracy doesn't mean stacking the deck. Redistricting is supposed to reflect population growth. But in Texas, the growth was in communities of color, and yet not one new majority-minority district was created. That's not an oversight. That's strategy. Then she went for the jugular. And let's stop pretending this is just about maps. It's about power. It's about clinging to control in a state where the people are changing, and the party in power is scared of that change. Chris looked stunned. Are you saying this is about race? I'm saying it's always been about race, she shot back. We've just become too polite to admit it. The clip hit 1 million views in an hour. Back in the Capitol, aides to GOP representatives were scrambling. Emails leaked. One staffer had written, "We need to prep a rebuttal to Crockett before the Sunday shows." But it was too late. She wasn't waiting for rebuttals. She was rewriting the conversation. That afternoon, Jasmine Crockett walked back into the House chamber like a woman on a mission, because she was. The floor was buzzing with quiet tension. Cameras were already rolling. On C-SPAN, the Chiron read, "Redistricting debate continues." But everyone watching knew this wasn't just about maps anymore. It was about truth. About who gets to draw the lines, and who gets erased by them. As she took the mic, all eyes turned. I've heard the spin, Jasmine began, her voice steady but cutting. That this is normal. That this is routine. Let me tell you something, there's nothing normal about erasing Black, Latino, and Asian voices from the map. There's nothing routine about stealing power from the people just because you're afraid of losing an election. You could hear the shuffle of papers stop. Even the aides on their phones were suddenly still. Then she turned to the Republican bench. You say you're defending democracy, but you're drawing lines to destroy it. And I won't stand for that, not in Texas, not anywhere. A low murmur rippled through the chamber, but Jasmine didn't flinch. She pulled a folder from the podium and held it up. This, she said. These are the testimonies. The lawsuits. The warnings from legal scholars. All ignored. Because when it comes to power, this isn't about law, it's about leverage. She laid the folder down with a firm thud. And let me remind you, Texas gained 2 congressional seats because of minority growth. Not white voters. Yet somehow, not a single new district reflects that. If that's not targeted, if that's not surgical, then I don't know what is. The silence was deafening. Even the speaker leaned forward in his seat. Jasmine's gaze swept the room. You can redraw the maps. But you can't redraw the truth. And this country, my constituents, deserve nothing less than honesty. She stepped back, let the weight of her words fill the chamber. And this time, no one dared interrupt. The moment Jasmine stepped away from the mic, a wave of chatter erupted across the chamber, but not from the left. It was the right scrambling. J.D. Vance shot a glance at Matt Gaetz, who whispered something behind his palm. Elise Stefanik leaned forward, clearly rattled. They didn't expect her to be this direct. This loud without shouting. This armed without raising her voice. And then, Trump's voice entered the room. Not literally. But via a live Truth Social post, blasted onto every conservative feed within seconds. Another angry radical leftist trying to divide our beautiful Texas. Jasmine Crockett doesn't speak for real Americans. Jasmine read the post on her phone. She didn't flinch. Instead, she walked right back to the mic. You want to talk about division, she said, holding the phone up toward the cameras. Let's talk about who divided Texas into jigsaw pieces that look like spaghetti noodles just to dilute black and brown votes. Let's talk about how the only real Americans some of you acknowledge are the ones who look like your voter base. The room shifted again, like the air had turned electric. You want to erase our communities from the map, then paint yourselves as victims when we push back. Well, guess what? Texas doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us, the people. All of us. And no algorithm or gerrymandered line can delete that. There it was. No script. No spin. Just fire and truth. Fox News cut to commercial. CNN replayed the moment in slow motion. And the hashtag Texas is all of us exploded on X. But Jasmine wasn't done. She held up a framed photo, an old image of her grandmother voting in a segregated Texas polling station. She couldn't vote freely. But I can. And you're not going to take that from me, or from anyone. The chamber was silent. The kind of silence that marks a shift. She had just redrawn the lines herself. Not on paper. But in the conscience of the country. As the chamber held its collective breath, Jasmine turned from the podium and slowly walked down the center aisle, not retreating, but owning the space. Every camera followed her like she was the axis of the storm. And she was. Across the aisle, Senator Rick Scott leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, visibly annoyed. Lindsey Graham scribbled something on a legal pad, shaking his head. But it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, perched just a few seats back, who couldn't resist the bait. She stood and shouted, "If you love Texas so much, maybe stop trying to turn it into California." The room gasped. But Jasmine didn't even blink. She pivoted, calm, focused, and replied. I'm not trying to turn Texas into California. I'm trying to stop you from turning Texas into Jim Crow. The room froze. Not a single Republican had a comeback. Not one. Because in that sentence, Jasmine had collapsed 100 years of voter suppression tactics into a single scalpel-sharp truth. And it cut deep. Michael Steele, watching live from MSNBC, leaned forward on air and whispered, "That wasn't a response. That was a reckoning." As the hearing resumed, Representative Crockett pulled out a map, this time a people's map. Drawn by nonpartisan analysts, it showed what Texas should look like, districts based on communities, not party lines. You redrew Texas to protect your power. I'm here to redraw it for the people. Then she pointed to the largest screen in the room, where side-by-side maps were now displayed, one gerrymandered like a pretzel, the other clean and logical. Which one looks like democracy? She asked. Nobody answered. Because the answer wasn't spoken. It was felt. The crowd behind her began to murmur, rising into applause. And Jasmine? She just stood there. Still. Unshaken. The hearing was supposed to be routine. A formality. Another chance for the majority party to steamroll dissent. But Jasmine had rewritten the script, and now the power in the room had visibly shifted. A hush settled as she took her seat again. Not in retreat, but in control. Her hands rested calmly on the table, but her eyes scanned the panel with a precision that made grown men look down at their notes. Chairman Jordan cleared his throat, trying to regain the tempo. We will now yield to Representative Roy. But before Roy could speak, a soft but firm voice interrupted. I'm not finished. It was Jasmine. Jordan blinked. You yielded your time, Ms. Crockett. Jasmine leaned in, her voice sharper now. No, I yielded your illusion of control. I still have facts, and the people deserve to hear them. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras zoomed in. Jasmine pulled a document from her folder, an internal GOP memo from last year outlining targeted district adjustments based on race and income levels. The words were damning. Preserve critical advantage in suburban majority-white districts. Mitigate urban minority consolidation through split zoning. She held it high, her voice unwavering. This isn't about politics. This is about survival. You're slicing up communities like cattle, erasing their voices for another decade of power. A few gasps. Some shuffling papers. A visible twitch in the corner of Trump ally Byron Donald's mouth. Then Jasmine pointed directly to a printed photo, Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, smiling with Texas state GOP leaders. This isn't democracy. It's a corporate merger between power and fear. Her mic went dead. Jordan had cut it. But Jasmine didn't need a mic anymore. The crowd in the hearing room had heard her. Social media had already clipped it. And millions were already sharing it with one caption. They turned off her mic, but not the truth. Outside the chamber, chaos bloomed. Within minutes of Jasmine's mic being cut, the footage hit every major platform. Twitter, now X, lit up with the tag #MicCutTruth. TikTok looped the moment her voice carried over a silenced microphone. CNN broke its feed to play the clip. MSNBC called it the moment that split the GOP's redistricting narrative wide open. But inside, Jasmine was calm. She didn't need applause. You can cut the mic, she said directly to Jordan. You can cut every mic in this building. But you can't mute what people are already living. She stood up slowly. Confident. Controlled. As if the floor belonged to her, and maybe, for the first time in a long time, it did. Across the aisle, Tim Scott shook his head. This isn't about race, he muttered. Jasmine turned her gaze. It always is when power gets uncomfortable. A pause. You redrew Texas like a board game, she continued. But real people live on those lines. Black mothers. Latino kids. Immigrants who still believe in the promise of America. You draw them out of power, and then ask why they're angry? The panel was silent. Even Roy, who never missed a chance to bark back, sat still. A voice from the crowd broke the tension. Tell it, Congresswoman. Another added, that's my rep. Jasmine turned and gave a slight nod, then lifted her phone and showed the live feed. We're still rolling, she said. In case you forgot, we serve them. Not the donors. Not Mar-a-Lago. Them. The moment was electric. A sitting congresswoman, censored in the heart of Congress, using the people's voice to amplify the one thing the majority wanted silenced, truth. She didn't wait to be dismissed. She walked out. And as she passed the press pool, she dropped one final line. Texas ain't your chessboard. And I'm not your pawn. Jasmine's final words ricocheted across the nation like a thunderclap. Within hours, her speech was clipped, dissected, remixed. Late-night hosts opened with it. Activists quoted it in protests. Even local Texas news anchors, normally neutral, played the full segment, uncut. But it wasn't just the words. It was the defiance. The clarity. The refusal to bow. Meanwhile, the GOP scrambled. Trump released a Truth Social post, another angry leftist melting down. Texas will be red forever. But the timing couldn't have been worse, because just minutes later, documents Jasmine had referenced dropped publicly. Real documents. From court records, legal depositions, and leaked campaign memos. One in particular caught fire. It was a donor strategy outline for Texas Republicans, with a section titled, "Reducing Minority Voting Power Through District Optimization." It was real. It was damning. And Jasmine had warned them. Now, the pressure turned. Reporters cornered McCarthy. Crews avoided cameras. Abbott stammered when asked about the strategy memo. The DNC seized the moment, launching an ad campaign titled, "Lines of Oppression," narrated entirely by Jasmine's voice from the mic cut moment. Back in D.C., Jasmine sat with Rachel Maddow. "She told you they'd come for your power," Rachel said. "Did you expect it'd resonate this loudly?" Jasmine didn't blink. "I didn't say it to go viral. I said it because it's true." Rachel smiled. "Well, Congresswoman, the truth just shook the map." Jasmine leaned in, calm as ever. "Good. Maybe now they'll start redrawing accountability." The end. "They tried to redraw the lines, so we redrew the narrative. They thought they could erase our voices, so we turned up the volume. Texas isn't just a battleground, it's a warning shot. And let this be clear, we're not just showing up, we're taking over. Justice doesn't need permission. It needs a microphone." Representative Jasmine Crockett.